Hello, everybody. We are back speaking to you from under a lot of snow and ice.
Indeed. And today we have the immense pleasure of having Liz Jacobs on here with us that you might remember from the Fertile Ground Gathering, but we have her here in a whole different capacity today.
Yes, we are going to talk about spirituality and art, and Liz has an incredible, unique art process, and I cannot wait to dive in. But before we do that, Jen, do you want to bring us some music so we can sort of set the stage and our intention for today?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
And as I think about it and who to invite in to sing, it seems only appropriate that I invite Crone and Shaman to come in and sing with and through me and guide things. I've had a lot of conversations with Crone this morning in preparation. And I guess for anybody who's not heard the episodes where we were talking about it, Crone and Shaman are both these little figures that Liz has actually brought together and brought to life that have really impacted my life. And I know that there's a friend there with Tava named Solstice that has also had quite an impact. And so that's what we're going to get to talk about today with Liz. So, yeah, I'm going to invite Solstice and Crone to come through and sing and set our stage for our conversation today.
Sounds wonderful.
Oh,
Samael's
there goes
already in full comment mode.
my awesome. That this is always a good sign. Hum ni ha hum ni ha hum ni ha hum na hey. Hum ni ha 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 hum ni oh nay. Oh, nay. Oh, nay. Om Ni Omnia 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 Iya Iya Omne, Omne, Anno. Anno. No.
That was lovely, Jen. Thank you so much for
Yes,
bringing
absolutely
that through.
beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I am in a quite altered state. I have to tell you though. Like, whoa, I felt like Crone was like, "Oh, we're not done. This isn't the end." I'm like, "You'll get a chance to talk later too," but I kept getting the sense of it was like, "Wait, no, there's more. Wait, no, there's more." I'm like, "Okay, we'll get to it. You'll get to talk."
I love that.
No, knowing Liz, I have to say the message that came through from Samael is appears on topic. Um, if you all don't mind, I'll share what I got during the song.
Yeah.
And
Of course.
thank you as always. Oh, oh my guys, the corgi wants to go out and she's yodeling. I'm so afraid it's gonna pick it up if I start to read because she's mooing. I'm so sorry. I'll be right back.
Take your time.
Oh, goodness.
Always at the mercy of our pets, aren't we?
Indeed. Yes, there's always something going on with them.
And
I saw you had a kitty up there that joined you.
the instance, as soon as you started singing, she was right here and she stayed the whole time. And as soon as you were done, she was like, okay, that's it. I don't need to be here anymore.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, her name is Lilu, and she's the only one allowed in my office.
Lilu. Oh,
Yeah,
what a fun name.
yeah, she's a real sweet girl, and she hides a lot from the other cats, and so she gets private mama time when I'm down here in my office, which is most of every day during the week. So she,
Nice.
yep. Yeah. So speaking of dogs that need to go out, I just saw a video this morning of a guy who had bought this sort of tunnel that has a zipper in it. And he had set the tunnel onto his yard and dug it out so that it was in the yard before it started to snow, so that he could open it up for his little short puppy so he could go out into the so he could go outside to pee.
It's adorable.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
it, my dog is very elderly, so she has to go out a lot. Here is what came through from Samael. To touch the wild is to touch the divine. When one walks into the woods or the desert or the sea, one walks out of the solitude and isolation inherent in the human form and steps into the all. Nature is the solution to a lack of connection. If you wish to speak to your gods and goddesses, ancestors and angels, spirits and former selves, it is to the wild you must go. Never doubt that they wait for you there. You will hear them in the wind, embrace them through the texture of the wood and stone, and view the vistas they have painted for you. Gather the feathers, wander in the creek. The bones and ferns will welcome you, and so will the cycles of divine pattern. When all feels lost, raise your face to the sun, the moon, and the stars, and allow your own power to run wild among the roots. I have to say, every time he talks about going to the wild as being the way to touch the divine, I'm always like, yes, pagans got it right. The first
Yes.
time he did that, I'm like, well, we already do that. So, like, awesome.
But it's always a
And
good reminder.
it's always a good reminder. And Liz, for those of you who don't remember, Liz at Mystic Fire caught a pathway that did just that, took people out into the wild and let their wild selves loose. And I didn't get to do that path because I was teaching my own path. But oh boy, did people look like they were having a grand time getting back into the environment that was originally created for them.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I gave them permission, which is to say, I suggested that they give themselves permission to get out there and just be wild for a while. And it really was more successful than I had dreamed. And everyone was very open to the exploration. And their biggest hurdle was overanalyzing and thinking too much. And so I had a lot of activities that helped them sort of shed that so that they could put that aside for the time being and just give themselves permission to just be out there and be their wildest version of themselves. And boy, did it work. It
Did it
That
turn into
sounds
where the wild
amazing.
did
was
it turn
very,
into where the wild things are, like that children's books with like the wild rumpus of people marching through the
yes,
woods and
very
singing
much
and
so. Yes, I had them create talismans, wearable talismans that were representative of a name that they received from nature that was their wilder name. And so we had a ceremony out in the woods where we presented that name to each of them and then put the talisman on and were instructed to just go about the rest of their day being their wild selves and be that wild rumpus. And they wore those for the rest of the event. And when I see them again, they often will be wearing them too. So it's moving forward, which is wonderful because I kind of live in that wild place most of the time. And so to see people stepping outside of their shoulds is very, very empowering. And I love seeing that from people.
your phrase "don't should all over yourself" is said often on this podcast. So this is the Liz, guys, that started that. And I love that
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
And what I love about the story you just told is I think people of all faiths, it's difficult a lot of times to integrate your spirituality into your daily life. We tend to say, well, I'm just making dinner, or I'm folding the laundry, or I'm on a work call. And a lot of times people compartmentalize their spirituality and say, it's only appropriate in this environment, or I don't know how to integrate it into my daily life, even though they want to. And so the people that were in your class, in your path, have found a way to keep that reminder of who they are, even as they're going to the grocery store or the gas station or running errands. There is still that everything that I do can have a sense of ritual and a sense of connection to it,
Yes, absolutely.
which
Yes.
brings us to your art.
Yes. Yes. Where do we start?
Well, maybe we'll start with the first time I was introduced to a whole box of power in your garage. I was Witch's Pride. Was that the event
Yes.
that we were
Mhm.
both at? And I came over to your house for a Mystic Fire planning meeting. And as you were about to drive me back to my hotel, you said, "Oh, do you want to see something?" And opened up this box. And this wave of, I mean, y- you know, when you're a little child and you walk into a candy store and your heart wants everything immediately? That was the sensation when I looked into that box. Folks, in this box were all these little figures. No two were remotely alike, and each one of them, I imagine that there's going to be a similar sensation after I die when suddenly my spirit is moving back into a place of remembering, and here come all these ancestors and entities, and I go, whoa, you all have separate personalities, but there is a connected magic between you, and I just kind of want to swim in this for a while. There were all these little figures there, and my first thought was, please let these be for sale. And it doesn't matter how much they cost. And I need one for Jennifer Taylor. And so,
Yeah.
Jen, do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, I remember you telling me about it and saying that as soon as you opened it up and as soon as she pulled out a specific one, that Samael kept going for the singer, for the singer, for the singer. And you were like, I don't know that this is something, I don't know, maybe she doesn't like this. And he was insistent of for the singer, for the singer, for the
Yes,
singer.
that's absolutely right. And with me, like as an artist, I know not everyone's going to jam with my art style. So I always feel weird choosing art for someone else's space because their view of the world and their sacred space might not be the same as mine. And I don't want to ever pick something that's the wrong fit. But Samael literally did not stop talking about that little figure. So then, Jen Taylor, you were down at that market with me. And the next day, we were sitting in the booth. And I think I turned to you and said, "Here's my credit card, and here's where you're going." Um,
Yes. Yeah. You were like, all right, please, you have to accept this. Please just let me buy this. And you have to go to Liz's booth and see these figures that she's made. And Samael is not going to stop until you do. So it was like, as a favor to me, you need to take my credit card, go there, pick one out if you want. You were very, if it resonates with you, if there's something that stands out, but that he is really insistent that you have one of these and that I am supposed to get it for you. And so you seemed so almost distressed at, like, he will not stop. He has nonstop been saying this ever since I saw them, that I was like, all right, I'm not going to put up a fight about taking your credit card and going and getting it, because clearly this just has to happen. And so I'm walking over there and I was really excited, but I was like, I don't know, we'll see. I don't know what I'm going to find or what's there. And I was standing back from the table because there were multiple people standing around, and I could just barely see all these little nature like figures on these shelves. And the person stepped away and I could see them, and there was just this wave of energy that came over me. Like, it nearly knocked me down level of energy. It was so intense and strong. And I know I've talked about this in another podcast when we were talking about it, but it was amazing. And I'm scanning over, looking at them, and there was a sense of, oh my gosh, they're all amazing. And I was really taking in, they're all individuals. Like, this was definitely a group of individuals all together. And there were a number that especially stood out more. And then I got to this one that was like, oh, that's it. That's it. And I kept hearing teacher, teacher, teacher. And it was so strong. I was like, all right, this is what I'm supposed to get. And talked to Liz, and who was expressing how excited she was. And I'll actually let Liz tell this part.
Yeah, so I'll talk more about the process and how I create them. But when I was creating that particular one, I was I was floored by the amount of energy that came through this particular being. And I call them nature spirits. They are little beings to me, and they come to life at a particular point in my process. And I literally had so much excess energy coming through my body as a result of interacting with this being as it was coming to life, that I was shaking. And I knew that I don't ascribe a gender to them usually, but I knew that it had to go to somebody very special, somebody who would really honor and respect it and use it specifically for their work rather than just putting it on a shelf and admiring it for its beauty. And so I was hesitant to even put it up because I was concerned that, if someone purchased it just because it was cute, that it wasn't really going to do what it needed to do. And so when you came along and picked up on that energy and felt so much power coming from it, I was like, this is exactly right. And through that process, I learned that these little beings are always going to go exactly where they're meant to go. And so before then, I had always just made them in bespoke fashion. So I wasn't making them several at a time to sell. I was making them as folks asked for me to make them, and there were very specific reasons behind what they were looking for as it to create a particular working or anything like that. And so I didn't know what I was doing really. I just knew that I needed to create several because we were trying to raise money for Mystic Fire, actually. And so I was delighted to see that this process was going to create an opportunity for these beings to go home with exactly the right person. And it proved to be true again and again throughout that weekend. So I was just so pleased that you ended up with Crone. I almost wanted to keep her to myself because there was so much power. It was amazing. So I'm so happy to know that you have Crone.
Yeah, I remember that whole experience of the interaction with you and being like, this is the one, this is the one, and how excited you were. And then she was very, I say she, but it was very carefully wrapped up in this box because here we are at a market where there's stuff everywhere. Things are constantly moving and getting shifted around. And I was going back to the booth with Tava where we had just so many things crammed into a small area. And so she was safely tucked into the box. And I carried it back and I was sitting there with it. And it was interesting that you were saying you were shaking when you were making it from the energy. The box started vibrating, like shaking. And I could feel this, let me out, take me out. It looks very fragile. It is not something that I felt like should be sitting here on this very busy market table. We're packing things up, we're grabbing things, we're moving things. But it was very clear. I mean, literally felt it like shaking in my lap. I was like, okay, all right, we need to get you out. And I remember she said something like, I've been around for eons. I'm not as fragile as I look. Or I'm not that fragile or something like that. It was like, take me out where I can sit here and I can be doing my work. And so I told Tava, I was like, all right, she's got to come out of this box because I don't want to know what's going to happen if I told her. And took her out and set her there. And for the rest of the time, we were not allowed to sit anything right in the vicinity right around her because when we would go to sit something there, it would be like, oh, no. It was like, this is my space. You do not clutter my space with something as trivial as receipts or the things we needed to put there. It was like there, she had her own space and the power that was there. And then you could feel, I really noticed a shift in the interactions that were happening at the booth that day. They went from more superficial kinds of interactions to major, deep, connected conversations and people really being drawn in and talking about what they needed. And it's like she just opened up this space that allowed in a whole different type of dynamic there.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I love hearing that. That's wonderful.
It was so funny because first off, I had sent Jen over and said, pick the one you want, knowing in my brain which one I thought it was, but I didn't tell her or want to influence her in any way. So she comes back and she's like, it wants to come out and opens the box. And I look over and I'm like, that's the same one. That's the same one that, you went over and picked up the exact same one that I saw. And it's not just Crone. You have this other one named Solstice who has this little space in the wood. There's a little hole in the wood. And when I saw her, I was really attracted to her and I couldn't stop thinking about her. And then after that market, I still had her on the brain and I thought, of course she's gone. And then Jen reached out to me and said, I want to get you one now. And
Yeah, I
I
think
knew
we actually worked it
immediately.
all out during the podcast. Like in the podcast when we were talking about it, it was like, that's it. All right, I'm going to contact her. I'm getting this for you.
It is the wildest thing ever since she's shown up. So, first off, she has pride of place on my altar in my studio. And the thing that's really interesting, and I didn't realize it until just now. So, first off, my organization and my clarity when I'm working in the studio has been much improved since her arrival, where things that I often left half finished actually get completed now that she's here. And the other thing that I noticed is I have started recently taking wood figurines from thrift stores and carving them and upcycling them into pagan
Ooh.
altar statuary. And I'm just now making the connection. The very first one that I did, I drilled a hole right through the center of it.
Whoa.
And yeah, and I'm like, oh, I think I know who that came from. And I have another one that I'm working on now that I'm like, kind of feel like this one needs a hole. And I'm starting to wonder if every one that I carve is going to end up with a solstice like hole in it. It's almost like this space, this beautiful empty space that's being held for possibility. It's like a little portal or a little gate in her
Hmm.
body. And
Hmm.
I just couldn't love her more. And then Keith ended up with one as well.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if I may, I wanted to talk about Solstice and how she ended up with you specifically. So, I remember that you had contacted me, Jennifer, to ask whether she was still available and that you wanted to get her for Tava. And I picked up on Tava's interest in specifically Solstice when Tava, when you were looking at all of them in my garage. And I think looking back on it, I believe that I was putting a little shield over her during the market so that no one else would be interested in her because she was among the most beautiful there, and yet no one wanted to purchase her. I sold several others, but not Solstice. And so I believe that she was waiting to go home with you. And so I just find it really like that's just another testament to the fact that these beings want to go home with very specific people, and she had already connected with you once, and so she already knew who she wanted to be with. And the idea that already this connection that I had created, and she was communicating with me energetically saying, save me for Tava. I don't
Oh,
hear things in words. I always get energetic perceptions. And so my understanding was, don't let anybody else buy me, And so I didn't hide her
so
away. She
glad.
was front and center, but
Oh,
I find that fascinating, and I'm super happy that she ended up with you, and what she
oh.
encouraged in you since then. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, she's in her own way reproducing herself in sort of different ways. And I think I've told this to Jen before on the podcast a couple times where I'm like, this ever since she has arrived in this studio, whenever I'm creating, it's like my brain organizes things better when I'm around her.
That's wonderful.
And I also, another sort of function that she has is the other thing I've been doing is I've started upcycling and restoring vintage porcelain dolls for
Mhm.
people to use in spirit communication. But sometimes those dolls come in with a lot of residual energy on them. And, now there's 20 dolls sitting around in various states of undress and cleaning and things. And sometimes I can just feel that things are getting kind of clogged in here. And she's who I turn to. I'm like, Solstice, we just need a nice leveling out here. We need a welcoming
Mhm.
for anybody who, any energies that are around that might be conscious that don't know what's going on. And I just turn to her, and it's sort of like she's on my team. She's the welcoming committee for any energies that are flowing in.
I just
So
love
it's
that's
really
wonderful.
lovely.
That's wonderful. So, do you want to talk about Keith's experience, or shall we continue on with my process?
His was very similar to us, and that I told him about it, and I told him I really wanted to get him one as well, and he went through the pictures that you had sent, and it was like instantaneous. Again, it was just like that's the one. And he looked at it for such a short time. I'm like, if you want to look at it any longer, or you want her to, she can make one specifically for you. He was like, no, no, that's the one. That's the one. And it was interesting because if I hadn't, like, if Crone hadn't been there, which we know would not have been even have been the case, like we know she would be there, that was the next one that I think I was most drawn to, and
Really?
which makes sense because Keith and I are so entwined and close
Mhm.
that that was the next one that I had this, oh, there's that one, like that was I think the one main one that I was going, oh, that one's so amazing too. And I have like an actual altar kind of shelf for each of them with the items and things around them that they have kind of requested, or that as I was putting everything together, it was really clear, this yes or no. Something was like, no, not that. No, not that. And so I have them both in this room, which is, the room where I do all of the healing sessions and energy work sessions and sound healing and things. And I have felt Shaman come in to support the work that I do as well. And Crone has really been one of the things that Samael had said about her was that she was also the keeper of Amnivara and the keeper of the stones, of these stones that I brought back from Vermont. And they are really strong. These stones came to me and were like, I'm coming home with you and you're going to dip me in this sacred river and you're going to do all these things. And so she helps to tend them and kind of keep their energies strong. And she had guided me to bring them into a certain session and set them down, and the stones, it was like the spirits of the stones like kind of leapt up from the stones and they were dancing with me, and she was supporting all of this. And she has come in very specifically into some of my healing sessions as well, where I was in this kind of other realm and she came up and I watched her do this specific work and actually like dragged someone's spirit from over this cliff, like up, and put them on this like throne and was doing this special work with them. So, I mean, she is definitely doing a lot of important work. And actually, I will hold these up. I have Crone here who's allowing me to show you and see so she can say hello again as well. Which is amazing because when I'd seen her in that night, I wanted to send Keith a picture of her. I got out the camera and it was, no, he will see me in person. And I was not allowed to take any pictures. And even when we were doing the podcast talking about her, and this is Shaman for anyone who gets to see it on YouTube, even during that episode, it was clear that I was not to necessarily like pick her up or bring her over. It was like, I'm not for show, but I think in this instance you get to see her again this way.
Something about her that was so unique in that process was that she had a face that looked like it had been carved, but it wasn't. I found that stone and it was already exactly in that shape. And you even asked me whether I'd carved her face, and I said I did not. And so it was just fascinating to me that she had such a very clear face. So
yes,
I also created a crone for myself years ago. This is Crone. This is my crone. Can you see her?
oh yes, oh she's gorgeous.
She's holding a little tiny lantern that sometimes holds a bit of sage. And you can see what's left of that sage right now. But
Oh yes.
she's got her cloak that sort of wraps all the way around her. And she sits with me wherever I am. I take her with me. One of the things that is difficult is recognizing that these beings are made entirely out of natural materials, with few exceptions. Like with Solstice, there's a little bit of fake snow at the base of her stand, and that's not real, but obviously we can't have real snow on her base. But for the most part, everything is made out of natural materials. And so over time, they will deteriorate. And that's part of the natural process. And so we honor that rather than being sad that she's deteriorating, she's falling apart, she's, losing her feathers or what have you. My crone is already losing some of her feathers. But that's part of the process. And I honor that and I respect that. And I recognize that that means that her work is almost done. And so eventually it will get to a point where I will feel drawn to do a rite for her and send her away and say goodbye to her, perhaps bury her. I don't know. I haven't gotten to that point yet, but it will be an honorable send off. But they last for years and years and years. And so, I don't worry about it, but I do recognize that, because the materials are all natural, there is that tendency for them to naturally fall out or come loose or, any of that. So it's just part of the process. So I'm telling you that because you each own them. And so, well, I can't say own them.
We get to care for them.
They are now part of your life. They are in your care. And so over time, you will notice that as well, So Just keep that in mind. So
Well,
I would love to tell you more about this process.
Oh, please do.
So I have a tendency to go back all the way to the beginning, but I'm not going to do that. I will save that for a little later on. What I do when I'm creating these little beings is I have over the years collected many little bits and pieces of nature, and I call them magics. Wherever I am, my pockets are full. And sometimes I'll have extra little containers that I'll carry with me just to put magics into. And when I'm wandering around, I usually will just keep my eyes open and things will sort of scream up at me and say, "Hey, take me home with you." Or if I see something and my eyes are drawn to it, I'll ask permission. "May I take you home? Would you like to come and become a part of a spirit being?" And if I get a no, I respect that and I leave it where it stays. But if I take it home, I add it to my studio space, and I would love to eventually take pictures and sort of send them to you. My altar table is also my studio table. It's all one and the same because I work in sacred space. And so there are baskets and bowls full of all these magics, big sticks, little sticks, feathers that I've collected over the years. I have to be very careful with feathers specifically because, for the most part, feathers are considered protected by, there's an act that I don't remember what it's called, but most birds, especially birds of prey, are protected creatures, and you're not allowed to have their feathers because it could be that you have killed this animal to get its feathers, and there's too much gray area there. And so I usually purchase the feathers from people who have chickens or peacocks as pets or animals that they slaughter humanely and things like that for other purposes. So beyond that, everything that I collect is from nature directly. But I have piles and piles in bowls, and it's kind of a disarray, but that's kind of my process. And I have these piles everywhere and little tiny stones, river stones specifically, but stones of every sort. And the stones are the little faces. And so when I'm sitting down to create a little nature being, the first thing I do is I sort of fish around until a piece of wood, typically driftwood, but not always, sort of stands out to me and says, "I pick me. I want to be created into a nature being." And so I will just sort of flip it around in my hand and try to connect energies with it and understand what it wants to be. And I may shape it a little with some hand carving tools and sort of get a feel for where's the front, where's the back, what kind of movement does it want to create. I have one that looks like a dancer who's just, she just wanted a face and a little bit of hair, and that was it, you know? So I sort of learn from this being what it wants to be and how it wants to be moving. And I honor that. And then the next step that I take is I dig around for a lot of little stones, these little flat river stones. And I'll just sort of set them on top of the piece of wood. And I'll set it on top where I think the head is, and I'll move it around. And it's sort of this symbiotic relationship at this point. We're in sacred space trying to connect in a very particular way. And there is this moment that comes at one point where I happen to put exactly the right stone in place in the exact same right spot. And I they've come to life. And I hear myself saying every single time, "Oh, there you are. Hello. It's nice to meet you." And so from that point on, I ask, "Who do you want to be? What do you want?" And every step of the way, I learn from her. Usually it's a her, to be honest with you. I did say I don't ascribe gender, but now that I think about it, I usually call them hers. Do you want feathers? What over time I start to learn more. And so I will pull little bits and pieces from my bowls and, do you want this? No, that's not what she wants. Do you want this feather, that feather? And so it's this sort of trial and error of understanding exactly what she wants added to her so that she becomes who she's already on the inside energetically. And I just bring that to life. So this process is really a matter of connecting to the energies of this being that doesn't exist in solid state yet, asking me to help her become. And it is such an honor to get to do this. And when I first started doing it, I thought I was nuts. I thought I was the only one who could see that there were little beings in here. And did anybody else see that there was a little face right here and that she had little wings and anything like that? And so I was delighted when others saw what I saw in them. And so I started making a few here and there as a bespoke piece. I made one for a friend who told me her story and what she was struggling with. And what came out was a being with two sides. She had a face on one, she had two faces. And it was this powerful being that needed to be with my friend for a very particular purpose. I'd never made one like that before. And honestly, every time I make one, I say I've never made one like that before. So it's this really fascinating sort of experience. And yes, I create these beings with the skills that I have learned over the years. And I use a lot of the artistic skills that I know, like I do some wood burning sometimes to create swirls or lines or anything like that, that I have a wood burning machine to draw with. But those aren't because that's art for me. Those are because that's what this being wants to be decorated with. Some of them want earrings, I think one of yours has earrings, maybe both of them have earrings. And so it just becomes this, you know, sort of bringing it to life symbiotic relationship. So I have many of them that I made that just sit here in my studio hanging out with me, you know. So
Almost
that's
like you're midwifing them, like they're in an unembodied form,
mhm,
and then you're helping to assemble the parts so that they can become embodied, which assists everyone who works with them in knowing where to focus and where to look, because we're embodied. And so a lot of times it's hard for us to reach out and really understand something that isn't. But when you're bringing it through into its new incarnation, its new form, then it gives us the opportunity to recognize that this energy is there. And I just
mhm.
think that's marvelous.
Yeah, yeah, it's wonderful. It's an honor really to be able to do it because it just sort of called to me to do. There was a time years ago, Kale and I, my husband Kale and I went to Mountain Lake Resort, and it's down in Virginia in the mountains over near Blacksburg. And there's a lake there up in the mountains that is a lake bed at this point because it has a cycle where it drains completely. And it's like a 300-year cycle where sometimes it's completely drained. And so all you see is dry lake bed, and sometimes it's a full lake. This is the place where they filmed Dirty Dancing, actually.
I have been there. I
Oh,
didn't know that about the cycle because when I was there, it was a full lake. And so
yeah.
I just assumed that that's how it was. I had no idea.
Yeah, so they don't understand it. And there are people who are trying to restore it, but there are people also, other researchers who understand that it's just a cycle and that we happen to be in the part of this natural cycle where it's dry. What's fascinating about it is that when you walk through this lake bed, it looks like you're in an alien world because it doesn't look like anything we are used to walking on. Usually it's all underwater. And so we ended up walking through this lake bed for over an hour because it's quite large, actually, fascinated by everything we were looking at. And there were little stones and little rocks and sticks and everything. And I collected a few of them. And one set of pieces that I collected all wanted to come home with me so that I could create an effigy for this lake as a way of saying, take care of me, mind me, tend to me, and make sure no one's messing with me because this is my natural cycle. I will be okay. Like this lake has been around for a lot longer than human beings, and so it knows what it's doing.
Yeah.
So I've created this little being and it just sits there in my closet. And every now I have a bedroom for a closet, so it's not like stuck in a tiny little room. It has a window and everything. And so every day when I'm in there, I talk to it and I honor it and, things like that. But it's a being that asked to be created so that I could send energy through it as a way of respecting its natural cycle.
That's
That's an
really
amazing
interesting.
story. Do
Yeah.
you ever
How
find
beautiful.
yourself Do you ever find yourself wanting to like planning your vacations around a place where you might find cool natural materials? Like, it'd be nice to look and see if there's any seashells that want to talk and, you know.
Yes, I did, and I wish I hadn't. We went to Hawaii, and although we didn't plan to go to Hawaii for that purpose, once we had decided to go to Hawaii, I realized there would be some things there that I would love to bring home to create something out of. I thought I got a yes. I asked very carefully and gently. There's a black sands beach. And although I know that Pele does not like her stones being removed, I thought it would be okay to take home some of her sand. And I was wrong, and things started to go badly at home. And so I said, okay, I'm very sorry. I misread your messages. And I put all of her sand back in a little jar and I did a little ritual and I enclosed it and I put wax around it, sealed it up, and promised that I would return her sand to her. And as soon as I did that, things started getting better in my life. And the next time we went to Hawaii, I returned her sand to her. So it doesn't
Wow.
out the way you plan, but things have been remarkably better in our lives since I returned that sand.
Wow. Oh, that's a
Wow.
wonderful story. You were the only tourist bringing sand into Hawaii.
Yeah, well, when I went to Hawaii, because I was anticipating asking to remove one or two pieces, I actually created a nature being and took her to the national park, the Volcano National Park, and did a little ritual in request of bringing home. And that's why I thought I got my answer yes. But it must have been wishful thinking that overrode what I actually heard. And so I had to learn the hard way to not let my own personal hopes get in the way of what I think I'm hearing. So that was a very interesting lesson.
Yeah, and that can be really hard. I've been in that position where I'm trying to sort out, is this my intense desire for this answer to be a yes, or am I actually feeling that? And that's a hard place to navigate because it's really hard to separate that out from what you're feeling.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I've had that happen with bones before. People,
Mhm.
because I'm a bone caster, bring, and they say, I found this lovely bone, but every bone that comes into the house, I ask, do you want to go work with people? Do you want to teach? Or do you want to have, do you want to be returned to the wild? And there's a not insignificant number of them that make it very apparent that they would like to be in the soil now, please. And if we ever sell this house and someone excavates outside, there are,
They're going to be
bones
very
from
confused.
random animals that from all, because I mean, people ship me coyote bones and Mustang bones. And yeah, they're going to be like, was this person a zoologist and why is everything in the yard? But yeah, I definitely know that feeling of you've arrived with me. You're beautiful and I would like to keep you, but it's time for you to go home.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So it's a lesson in paying attention and removing ego from the equation so that we can understand what we're receiving without adding our own bias into it. And it is a human thing to add to it. So, it is a constant adjustment to pay attention and be mindful enough to recognize what's really going on. And, at first if I think about it for a while, I can sit and say, when I was holding this nature being, I felt rushed because there were other people coming down the path because it was a national park and there were people visiting. And so I just found a little space out of the way, just past the pathway, and I found a tree. And I was sitting at the base of the tree talking to Pele and to the volcano and asking permission to take home something that would have come apparent to me at the time. And I felt rushed because people were coming by. And so I probably didn't pay as close attention to my answer as I would have if I didn't feel that rush, because I removed myself from the purely spiritual aspect of my practice and had to move into the more mundane, I better pay attention to my surroundings because people part of my practice. And so, it is definitely a danger, and it makes it more obvious to me that I better pay closer attention in the future because I don't want to create a situation that is going to become a problem down the line.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I completely resonate with that too, as far as when you're in one of those spaces like a park or a place where there are lots of people coming and going, or you have a limited amount of time in a space. I tend to put so much pressure on that. And especially, something like where you were experiencing, where you've come a long way to have this moment and this experience. A
Mhm.
lot of times for me, those are really challenging because I have so much anticipation of them and so much excitement. And I put so much pressure then on that moment. And
Mhm.
I know for me, it makes it a lot harder to sort through those things because there's all of these emotions that weren't there when I had the inspiration to go to that place or to do whatever that is. But I find in that moment, when if I'm rushed or I have a limited amount of time, or there's that feeling of importance, sometimes that seems to put up its own obstacles to clarity of.
Yep. But everything's a lesson, right? And so this could have been exactly what I was supposed to learn through that whole process. I might have gotten that yes so that I could learn this entire process of paying better attention. And because I am not the kind of person who will ignore those other signs, I got enough of the lesson to go, okay, I was wrong. Let me just put this sand in someplace safe, protected until I can get it back and actually follow through with that. Whereas someone else might not. They might go into denial. They might try to talk themselves out of that and perpetuate something going more and more poorly in their lives. I was in a position to learn this lesson quickly and keep it, and maybe help others learn it. So it could have been designed for that exact purpose. So
Yeah.
I'll take
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah, definitely. I want to thank you all for joining us for this conversation, which continues in next week's episode, along with a really fascinating story about how all of this began for Liz. So I encourage you to continue listening next week. And in the meantime, I wanted to leave you with a song called Blessings of Place. And this is one that I have on my Amnivara Bandcamp, and I'll have a link below in the notes. But I thought that this was a really appropriate song to include here and to send you out in the world with, because it was really channeling the spirits of place of a sacred area up in the mountains of Vermont. And so joining me in this song, both through the recording of the river, as well as through my energy and through my voice, are a lot of the nature spirits of that space. It is at once an invocation of those spirits and also a blessing from them. I want to specifically acknowledge some of the energies that come through. There's the river, whose name they gave me was Ohuna, the hermit thrush, which is a type of bird that is native to that area, the mountain there, the forest, and all of the various energies there that contribute to this song as well. And Aniala Anelu, which was the name that the spirits of place there in Grafton, Vermont gave me to call them. So I hope that you really enjoy this and that it transports you to a realm of health and wholeness. So enjoy this, and may it carry you until next time.